I'd like to go on to another question. If I
Okay,
could.
yeah, sure.
Okay, you made a tweak to the boundaries in voting district between Cache and Box Elder County, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Noting that Utah has one of the most gerrymandered states in the nation, I understand there's a proposal to set some guidelines for future redistricting.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that, and would you support that?
Well, yes, so Merrill Nelson proposed that. It basically establishes just some principles, right? And the perfect legislative district is a perfect circle, right? If you look at the map, perfect circle, homogeneously distributed population, that in theory is the perfect district. Now we know that doesn't work because of geography and topography and the way the cities are built and population densities and all that. So what it does is it says basically you want to, that there's community identity within political subdivisions that exist already. So like within a county, like we're Weaver County peeps, right? I mean, we're Weaver County. We're not Davis County, well, unless there's some people from Davis County here. Just ignore my comments. But we're from Roy, we're from Ogden. You know, we tend to like to identify with the political subdivision that we live in. So conceptually, one of the principles is we want to keep those as whole as possible. Now, some of the things to consider too, you've got multiple layers of districting, right? You've got state Senate districting, which is about 150,000 people, so that's a little harder to keep everyone in the same group together, depending on if you have to cut a county in half, or you know that your county may have a population that's twice that size, or maybe even half of it. Then you've got House districts, which each of us has about 38,000 people in that. It's a little easier to keep together. You've got congressional districts. That's probably the most contentious of the districting, and that I saw probably 100 different maps drawn to accommodate that, and that was I was not on the committee. I was a freshman when that was happening. So this next go around, we voted on the bill already, so I supported it, and I think the House supported it too. So it really wasn't that contentious of an issue. We recognize the principles, but I think we all agree on the principles. Ironically, as much as contentious as the congressional map drawing was this last cycle, everybody held hands and sang Kumbaya when it came to the House district maps. Like, there was not a single comment or criticism. Everybody agreed on how the maps were drawn this last time. We'll redraw the maps in another 4 years. So, all right, next question.
I have a question on House Bill 270, the inmate housing amendment. You mentioned a $10 million price tag. Who's paying for that? Is that state or is that county?
That would be a state expense. So that would come out of sales tax and general fund.
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. So the question is regarding inmate housing amendments. Who pays for it? The $10 million price tag. Who pays for that? And we do. All of us do. So that's something we'd have to figure out where do we get that. Okay. So that's a question of whether we want to sacrifice something else to pay for this. My hunch this year is that it will probably start a discussion that we will have all summer long. Conceptually, the Department of Corrections, we did the Justice Reform Initiative the last couple of years. We're at JRI, you heard Justice Reform. Oh wow, okay. So this is where we said we didn't want the prison population to explode with nonviolent offenders. So we reduced a lot of nonviolent drug crimes and misdemeanors to get these guys into treatment. We are still working on the treatment component. I'm actually very disappointed that we don't have that. It's about a $16 million price tag that we need to fund mental health and drug addiction treatment. So we've got to get that done this year, no matter what. The courts are demanding it, and that was part of the original plan. So this will probably be kicked to the back burner and be part of that discussion on how do we improve outcomes from our correction system. But we got to start somewhere. So
I just had a follow-on to that. Doesn't
Weaver County get paid for those 156 beds, and how much is that?
Weaver County gets compensated about $200,000 from the state for hosting half of its felony halfway house population. So, you know, cold comfort, in my opinion, because half of the guys that come out of that will reoffend, right? And 20% of the inmates that come from outside of Ogden, because most of them come from outside of Ogden, just because our town is small, a lot of those stay in the community. So we kind of, it's like sedimentary layering in Lake Powell, right? We just have this layering of people that come from Draper Prison and end up staying in our community for, you know, and then we work with them to try to reintegrate them as best as we can. So, question over here. Well, let's do one, and we'll come back to him, and then maybe we'll come back to you.
Okay. When you're talking about redistricting and how districts are put together, Ogden itself is divided into 4 districts. Why is that not a homogeneous district within itself and the outlying cities and smaller towns put together in that direction?
Well, so that was an agreement between both parties, that subdivision.
That doesn't make sense. I don't care whose agreement it was.
Well, and it's all I'm going to say. It's all I'm going to say.
Well, you were part of it, though, weren't you?
I defeated the incumbent in that district that was a single Ogden district. And based on the history there, I'll just say that both parties agreed that that was in the best interest of Ogden to do that. And so, okay, next question here.
Got to stop raising their taxes. All these guys that come to you for money, I'm sure you need to weed some of them out. Then the other question is, if you're sitting by a guy that's been there 10 years, and he's got a lot more experience than you, and you think what brought up is wrong in your opinion, and he says, vote for it, can you stand up and say no?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone's vote counts the same, right? What experience does is just give you knowledge of where the moving parts are. But everyone's vote counts. If you don't like something, I mean, I was voting against popular things when I first showed up. Kind of made a thorn of myself in the side of some folks. But yeah, everyone, inexperienced legislators will sometimes lean on experienced legislators and based on their knowledge, right, of the issue. But if they know that it's not in their best interest for their district or doesn't represent what their constituents want, we all vote, you know, based on that.
So why don't they listen to the people? A lot of them don't. The people-
Well, that's why you're here today. So I can't speak for the other guys, but I know that you and I are here. So thank you for being here. Back to your question.
Okay, what is the legislature doing about the Indigent Defense Fund? I know Utah is one of the worst on providing defense attorneys for
Yeah,
those who cannot afford them.
Yeah, so this issue came out of the Senate last year and came through us. I'm not immersed in the issue, but I'm familiar enough to know that we're working on it. Todd Weiler has been pushing that from Woods Cross, Senator Weiler.
Pushing what about?
Pushing to get more funding to the indigent defense. And there are some kinks in there that I'm not familiar with. I'm not on the Judiciary Committee to know all the details, but I know we're continuing to work on it. I know it's a big issue. So, but I don't have all the details to answer your question on why it's not moving forward. I support it, but for some reason it's not going across the finish line at the end. So it may do that this year, but I know last year we tried. So, okay, any other questions? Over here, Jason.
When you were mentioning with House Bill 23, you mentioned that the solar tax credits used, obviously when we did those things, it's to encourage people to perform a certain action. In this case, it was to buy solar panels. I see that you've co-sponsored the House Resolution 18, encouraging Utahns to consider smaller. Is there actually anything coming down the pipeline for that to actually encourage people, or is this just something because it sounds good in the Senate that you co-sponsored and nobody's really going to think about?
It sounds good.
It sounds good. Okay. An honest answer is always good.
Honest answer.
I tend to hang out with an older group of people, and among the elderly people I hang out with, there are, right offhand, I can think of 6 people with varying chronic illnesses, Lewy body dementia, fibromyalgia, chemotherapy for cancer, Parkinson's, who are currently taking marijuana for their conditions. Their caregivers and they are potentially faced with felony charges. The legislature's doing nothing. Could we fix
So what is the
that?
question?
The question is, could we fix that?
Oh, okay, so last year we ended up in a stalemate. This is a complicated issue, right? So there's a couple forces at work. One is the promise of good medicine coming from marijuana as a plant. There's some uncertainty about that because there's various jurisdictions that have done research, but none in the United States that is like a medicine journal saying this is safe and this is what we're going to do. So this year we actually have funded a research program at the University of Utah to get data that we feel like we're comfortable with at a local level. So that's one component. The other component is you've got not just medical marijuana legalization, but marijuana legalization, right? And the crowd that supports that also supports the medical marijuana provision because they feel like that moves the policy or moves the ball further down the field to where they're comfortable with it. So that's an area that the legislature is very uncomfortable with because there's, particularly with how it impacts youth, right? And the youth consumption of marijuana is very detrimental to development and future prospects for these kids. And so looking at what's happened with usage in Colorado since it was legalized, youth usage has gone up. So there's some serious concerns with that there's this, when we wanted to move towards medical marijuana last year, there was a strong pull to keep it pushing it further that other direction, and there was this almost built-in drug culture ready to adopt and accept what we were trying to do, and it turned out that the stakeholders, there was multiple different players at the table negotiating that bill last year. Things fell apart at the last minute because some information came forward that was detrimental and made the legislators really uncomfortable. So they couldn't come to a firm agreement, and things sort of fell apart. So I think this year, and particularly with the change with our president and the administration, knowing where are the feds going to be on enforcement on that issue, has also tempered some of the enthusiasm to move forward like we had before. So I think we're moving in the medical direction of getting a good information because we can make good choices with good information, but it may not be at the speed that we were before because of the change at the federal level. So
there's just been research released just in the last year showing that there's there's certainly some uses for medical marijuana. And what I'm thinking of is people I know who are on chemotherapy and the Lewy body dementia, they'll be dead before this is enacted.
Or addicts.
question over here.
I'm not talking about it.
We're not talking about.
Okay.
They're not gonna be
Let's come back to this question over here.
Opioids.
Yes.
All right, let's have some decorum here. All right, actually, let's go to Mr. Schultz right here.
Okay. Just a comment, if you want, I can give you a copy of 19 patents that the U.S. government has issued for medical use for cannabis. I have those. People don't know that they exist. But they also, I support that, but I understand you have to be very careful how you implement that. Because I know there's a crowd that wants to push it too far towards the recreational.
Right, and also the argument is, if it is legal as medicine, what form of medicine is it? Is it a pill? Is it a syringe? Is it a whole plant? You know, that's a whole separate debate that the legislature's been having too, because the method in which you take it could affect, you know, have external implications beyond just the medical use. So, question over here, sir.
Yeah, can you tell me what scared the legislature? And has 12 months or however many months since they voted no, have they found that what scared them is true or was fake news or something? I mean, what scared them?
I actually don't know exactly what it was, because I wasn't part of that negotiation. I just know, talking to the sponsor, he didn't get into the exact details, but said that the stakeholders couldn't bring it together, and there was new information that came out at the last minute that broke down.
So we the people have no access to that information?
Well, you could call the sponsor and ask him. Brad Dawes is his name. I haven't.
As my elected official, could you do that for me?
Sure, yeah, I'll ask.
Thank you.
I think I could answer that. It was the push towards recreational use. So at least that's what was explained to me by another fellow legislator. It was there was a group, and you explained it as there was a push to go further. That's the recreational people, and that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and
how
I
to control it and issue it.
And I don't know who that group was or what their exact proposal was, but yeah, that's the implication that I have. So, over here.
They're discussing marijuana. I live right there in Ogden, in the inner city minority community. And I've been involved with this community. I was born in Ogden. And I think that is the wisest thing for them to do. Medical marijuana, I think is good, but it must be more research and let the people know. He says he has some findings. He says he has some findings. But the thing is, the people who it will affect, that is not for medical, but for recreational or just to be used in. Who I represent and speak for years for this community is the youth. Even the sheriff department was very concerned about that. It can easily go that way if we do not take this issue wisely. I'm concerned about the youth and their future when it comes to recreation, medical,
So good information makes for good decision making, right? And each of the states that have legalized marijuana have their own, or legalized medical marijuana, have their own list of things that you can use it for. And those lists are not the same across states. There's some differences there. And so, you know, trying to pin down those differences and why they're different is important. Over here.
You know, the importance for finding a balance on this issue is I do a lot of business in California, and I have a lot of clients there, and a lot of them I'm social with in different ways. And a lot of these guys have, but they just made it legal for everyone. But prior to this, is I have a lot of clients that have the marijuana cards, and they'll flat out tell you that they don't have any ailments. They just go down and get the card. They can buy the brownies, they can smoke it. What's that?
I don't understand what the detriment to society is of eating a brownie.
Can you get in your car and drive and you wreck your car?
We got it. How do you I've never.
No, I'm just saying
these
balance.
I would just like to
are unrelevant to.
All right, let's keep the.
I'm just making a point, let me finish, thank you.
Thank you.
Is, you know, they had a point, sure, it probably helped some of these people. But I know a lot of people in the states where it was for medical, they'll tell you straight up that they didn't have the cards for medical, they had it for recreational. You know, and they were smoking this stuff daily, and it had nothing to do with medical. And it's just not a small fringe. These are high earners, high professionals, and they all have their cards.
So do you have a question?
Statement.
Oh, just a statement. Okay, so well, one of the things to consider too is, during the Prohibition, you could get a prescription for whiskey, right? There was an exemption for whiskey as medicine, right? So how many people do you think had headaches during the week, right? Probably quite a few. And they did. So this happens, right? This happens. So if you have something that somebody wants, and there's always going to be a black market or some way that somebody's going to obtain it. Jason, you have another question?
Yeah, you said there was no studies done on the use of marijuana. Are y'all looking to other states? I will tell you, I actually moved from North Carolina, and there is a law on place called Maggie's Law. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was House Bill 799 in North Carolina. And what they did is they looked at specific instances, and they actually assembled a team of neurologists from Duke University and Chapel Hill, which are some of the leading universities, and had them study the use of specific things such as CBD oil, which allows the medical benefits without the high.
Yeah. Now that is legal in Utah.
That is legal?
That is legal. We
Okay,
passed that about
that's
3 years,
very limited.
yeah, about 3 years ago. Yeah, it's used for epilepsy in children.
Yes. Okay, I just
Yeah,
want
so-
to know if you're looking at this.
Yeah, so like, we have been moving along that path, but I think the speed in which we're moving now is slower
Yes.
than it was before. And also that we have looked at the other states, but none of the other states agree on everything.
No.
And so that's part of the
Just
scratch.
the studies that they found is what I.
Right, I mean, Israel has done some great research on it, but that's Israeli research, you know, so where's the standard that we follow?
We should probably do the cards and have more questions later.
Okay,
Since they've already submitted them.
all right, now, well, here's what I'm gonna do, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna actually, it's a grab bag, I'm gonna read your questions here. What is your role, and this comes from Annette, what is your role in working with Weber County Commissioners Ebert on the Intergenerational Poverty Task Force? So I don't actually work with the task force very much, other than when I take my legislation to them and say, I hope you think this is a good idea, right? So the Intergenerational Poverty Commission actually likes the Student Prosperity Savings Account bill that I ran. So there's like a county task force, there's the state commission and task force, which has poverty advocates on it. They act as a non-voting member of the Intergenerational Poverty Commission. Lieutenant Governor chairs that commission. So Utah basically has a 10-year plan for intergenerational poverty. District 9 happens to be one of the highest concentrations of intergenerational poverty in the state. Right, we're all tightly packed in a little portion of downtown Ogden, with a few spots of Roy as well included. But you know, this is an issue that's close to my heart because I see it with the kids that walk past my door every day and go to school without shoes, and parents that aren't maybe are less than diligent in parenting. So anyway, it's an issue that I'm working on legislatively, but direct work with the task force, we're kind of doing different things and connect with our focus lines.
So I am on that task force, and I just want to...
Well, you better hunt me down then.
No, I'm on the task force to help come up with some of the plans stuff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the next question is, let's see, actually follow up to that question. Okay, this is from Kevin from downtown Ogden. Raise your hand, Kevin. Okay, there we go. Hey, there you are. Do not look directly at the camera. That's the first rule of media, right? Do you support the so-called Zion Curtain? If so, why? No, I don't. I voted against it several times. Next question. Yeah, so the Zion Curtain, yeah, it's this weird anomaly that we have in state alcohol policy. Now, I do support Utah being a control state. I know there's some folks who say privatize it, keep it, you know, just put it out there. But if you read the book, the title is Toward Alcohol Control. And it's written by John D. Rockefeller, written in 1933, after the end of the Prohibition. It explains the history of how we ended up in the Prohibition and how they found a balance coming out of the Prohibition to balance the need for people's desire for hospitality versus public safety, right? Because prior to the Prohibition, you had vertically integrated alcohol distributors. So Anheuser-Busch manufactured the beer, they owned the distributor, and they also owned the saloons that would distribute the beer. So if they had a heavy run, you know, they had a big run, you know, a big barley crop or whatever, they would push the alcohol more cheaply through the distribution chain. And the cheaper the alcohol was, the more people would consume, and you just had a lot of very painful public societal costs because of that overconsumption. So the control state that we have now tries to balance the desire for, the demand without the promotion and pushing it out there in scale. So, but yeah, the Zion curtain, we just need to get rid of that. Education funding, we need more, your ideas and position. Tax credits. We've talked about that quite a bit.
No, that's my question.
Oh, that's your question. Okay, so I'm looking at this from a tax credit perspective, right? So on a holistic scale here, we have $650 million in tax credits that we issue. So if we can start pulling those back, that will.
If you can start pulling them back, I have grandchildren, teachers. I have grandchildren who are in need of good education. Utah is no poster child for funding education. And I think it's time for the legislature to step up and address education in a realistic way, pay the teachers what they deserve, get our facilities and some of the other things that are important to the education system in place. I know you're doing some good things to bring money back into the system, but that's not enough.
Well, it's certainly a slow slog.
System. And if it takes taxes to go up for my grandchildren to get a good education, so be it.
Okay, well, I'm not willing to raise taxes to do it. So,
Why not?
So
Why
not?
Why are you not willing to raise taxes for?
So I'm actually on the board of the union of the local here, of the teachers union here, and I wanted to get your take on the Our Schools Now initiative that will go in. We're going to start. Well, not we, but so if you guys, anybody know about the Our Schools Now initiative? Sounds like he does.
So I can explain that.
Okay.
So the Our Schools Now, it's basically like Gail Miller and Lane Beatty, former Speaker of the House, a number of other prominent Utahns and prominent business people in the Salt Lake area who believe that we need to spend more on education, right? I think everybody's on that same page. We need more funds for education. I think our disagreement is how do we get there, right? So, I want to pay teachers more. I want to have better schools, better outcomes from our educational system. The question is, how do we get there? And that's what we're fighting about, right? But the Our School Now initiative says we'll put a public initiative out there and ask the voters to raise their own income taxes.
Well, if the legislator doesn't do it.
Well, that's correct, yeah. So it would be, so it'd go on the ballot, yeah. It'd be a 7/8% increase on your current income tax, which you pay 5% right now. So it'd be 5.78% or 5.875% with the proposal. So if that passed, if the voters voted for that, then that would go into effect, and it would raise $750 million, from you to pay for the schools. The legislature, and just speaking on a political basis, and as far as political power goes, the legislature doesn't like that because we're the ones that set the policy, right? We're very jealous of that power. We're always scrapping with the governor, checking him and checking the judiciary, and we like to have things in our sphere of control. We set the budget, and that's our job. So having the purse strings, when we have a citizen initiative come along, it kind of it doesn't taste very good, right? So we also have some previous experience with this with the Count My Vote initiative, right? And basically that was somebody coming up and putting a gun to the head of the legislature and saying, do this, change something or I'm going to pull the trigger, right? So under duress, the legislature passed SB 54, which changed the caucus convention system, so we have the two doors, right? But I'm shifting down a different tangent here, but the point being is that the initiative left a sour taste in the legislature's mouth. And so I think the legislature's, at the present moment, and I'm speaking of leadership, like the Senate leadership and House leadership, is scratching their heads wondering, how do we navigate this without looking like we got bullied into it, but at the same time doing something that could be meaningful, and also retaining our authority, you know, to deal with the purse strings. So that's the dynamic that's going on right now. I think that you know, that we'll have that probably figured out by the end of the session.
I know you don't want to speak on it right now anyway.
Well, and it's early. I mean, we're halfway through the session. Yeah, we're halfway through the session, but things have just started. There's a whole lot more than that. Let's go to the question here.
Well, this, with HB 212, with the high poverty, it's things like this that we don't need to waste our money on. It needs to go back into the education system. When you put, you try to put teachers against each other or merit pay, you kill the whole momentum. Or you mandate that we do certain things when we know it is not good for our students.
Right, and we go through this battle too. As a legislature, we like local control, right? So we just write a check and send it to the local districts, except when we don't.
Yeah.
And then we come into micromanagement.
And then, right.
Yeah, so, okay, question over.
I just want to make a comment on this. I understand this raising of taxes for education.
Hold on a second.
Will be leaving in approximately 25 minutes. Please plan your transactions accordingly. Thank you.
I feel like we're landing an airplane.
To me, I hear every year we've got to raise the taxes, we've got to do this to pay for our schools. And then every year I see something go up and we get another school, but it's a palace. It's not a school where kids go to learn, it's a palace. Then we get 10 vice principals in there to take care of it. When is the money going to go to the teachers instead of the overhead and the building?
So-
I said the other day, we're building a bunch more buildings. Are they going to be educational buildings or are they going to be palaces?
So it's a good question. And that has to do with the way that money is raised to pay for the schools. So your property taxes can only pay for capital improvements for the buildings. You cannot take that property tax money and pay for teachers.
But you take that pot of money that you just told us that is for education, and then you take other stuff out of it, and then that diminishes the amount for the education and the teachers.
Yeah, well, and again, we're working on, I think we're all trying to move the same direction. The question is, how do we get to, there's a lot of details.
But
So
taking money out and put raising the taxes, use it for the teachers.
right, so the teachers are paid from the check that we cut to the local districts, right? And so when we cut a check and say, here's your school district's money, the school board then decides how to appropriate that money. So in a sense, that becomes a local fight, you know, at the school district level.
Still
So,
take money out of the educational pot at your level. You told us that at the beginning. You have this pot of money that goes in for education, and you take a certain amount out for this and out for that. And
Right.
you can't guarantee it goes to the school.
well, and I'm going to put you on my cheerleading list for my tax credit initiatives and reducing those, because that's what you're speaking to is the tax credits that divert money away from education.
I'm speaking to the money that's supposed to go to teachers, going to teachers, not buildings, not administrative. Change it, pay our teachers a decent salary.
Okay, well, thank you for the comment over here.
Yeah, so this initiative, this teachers initiative, would that money, that 78% go towards teachers?
No.
No, that would just go to the education budget as a whole. And so then the question would be, well, and actually I take that back. The initiative does have some specific
Well, the ideas.
things. Yeah, specific ideas on where it would go. That's, I think, the other problem the legislature has is that mandate in there, because that's also our purview on what part of the education budget that goes to. So,
I think that's a really great idea, because a lot of people, some people don't want taxes, some people do want taxes, but this will give us the power to say, yes, we want these taxes for this purpose. It puts, control back on the people who are actually going to be paying the taxes, and then we can see that it goes directly to the source that we want. In other words, our teachers.
That's what our schools now does.
Yeah, I
Goes
think that's
right
fantastic.
to the local schools.
I would definitely vote in favor of that.
And it doesn't go through all of the other.
Yeah.
But people with kids sometimes don't want that either, so.
right, so I'm going to shift over to another question here.